Oh, I think I am live on Facebook. Hello, Facebook. And I'm trying to go live on Insta too so I can do this double time. So hold on. Coming up live. Okay, I should be live on Facebook and Instagram right now. And the little notification I'm getting says they're telling all my followers. So I'm going to just take a deep breath here for a minute because I think there's some people who want to see this. And let me just say, if you have questions, please, type them in whenever, and we'll take a few minutes at the end if I need to answer questions. But basically, I came on here today because I have seen a lot lately about, gluten-free, celiac disease. So I wanted to come on and share my experience. I'm Darcy. I am the creator of the Vibrant Woman course, and I'm also a founding member of the MAF certified health and fitness coaches and practitioners. So I'm here to talk about a gluten-free diet today, some of the myths about it, some helpful tips from my own experience, because I've been thriving as a celiac for way more than a decade. And I know people can worry that giving up something as ubiquitous as gluten products can be difficult, but I'm here to say it's absolutely possible. And it could be that the best part of your life starts when you do that. Okay, at least that's how it was for me. So I'm going to back up for just a minute and give you the background story here. Some of you might already know that my daughter was brain injured, and I took I took a class to take on an intense program of neurological organization, right? So we rehabilitated my daughter so that she could outgrow a long list of disabilities and go on to become the successful independent college student that she is today. A big part of that program was nutrition. And one of the first things we did was to remove many commonly known problematic foods, right? Wheat was near the top of that list. So I stopped bringing it into my house. Both of us stopped eating it. And I tell you, right, in the beginning, we were pretty desperate for substitutions. I mean, this was like 18 years ago. Almost nobody had heard of, gluten. Gluten-free was not a thing. No company had realized they could make massive profits by re-engineering the most popular junk foods to exclude it. So I was the weird one, trying all these alternative grains and wandering the musty aisles of hippy-dippy health food stores to try and keep our meals looking and tasting as normal as possible, right? And so what's normal in our culture? Wheat products. Almost everything is made with wheat products. I'll be talking more about this in the future, but even at any party, and people in my family will come up to me and say oh, we know there's so much you can't eat. Well, actually, there's just a few things I can't eat. It's just that those things are in everything on that table, right? Wheat products. All right, so people think they're getting a variety when they're really not. And that's one of the other issues that surrounds this, and why when we remove it for folks like me, you can see absolutely incredible benefits to your health. So let me get back to my story, right? So we wanted our meals to be normal, and it didn't take very long to realize that was not going to happen. Buckwheat flour doesn't hold together to make pizza dough. Spelt pretzels were pretty good, but the day after that was when my daughter's irritable bowels would manifest again. And so it didn't take long, right, to realize that for her, it was definitely a gluten trigger. It wasn't just the wheat, it was the gluten, right? And gluten can be found in several of the other grains in large amounts down to trace amounts in the oats or the rye. Okay, so my attempts to make wheat recipes, but without wheat, they were pretty much a big flop. And we just had to face it then. We decided if it's not something we can eat and be well, then we have to give it up. We have to go in another direction. So it's also important to know that this is the same time that I was learning about carbohydrate tolerance, or I should say intolerance. Okay, so when I did my first 2-week carb test, the results were absolutely incredible. I had never felt better in my entire life. One of the most carb-dense foods that had to come out during that test, you guessed it, right? Wheat products. It's all the refined flour stuff. All right, so it didn't take me long to put two and two together. It wasn't just the triggering of the inflammation from the gluten. It was also the carb density of these refined flour products that were the source of my body's discomfort. Discomfort in the form of frequent bloating, occasional stomach pain, irregular or uncomfortable bowel movements, acne, hormonal imbalance, moderate to severe PMS on the regular, occasional headaches, chronic lethargy, irritability, mood swings, disrupted sleep. So I thought this was just normal life. But now I know that it was my body trying to tell me something was not right. Because today, after more than a decade of eating grain-free and eating for the most part below my carb limit, I just feel great, like pretty much all the time. I feel a little guilty for saying that, but yeah, so you remove the problem. It's like this. It's like when you stop hitting yourself with a hammer, you feel better. Yeah. Okay, so what I'd love for people to take away from this is the idea that gluten intolerance, okay, gluten intolerance is a real thing. Wheat allergy is a real thing. There are multiple pathways that can be affecting you. You know, there's the IgG test, there's the IgE test. So it just sort of depends on what's your body's weakest link. That's where you're going to see the problem manifest. So the point is there's lots of different ways to sort of test and diagnose and get numbers and get feedback from medical professionals about this. So gluten intolerance, wheat allergy, but listen to this. Those two things, plus carbohydrate intolerance, plus the ultimate manifestation of that, which is diabetes, those are all found on the same gene. Okay? So these are manifestations, they look like different manifestations of the same basic problem. Okay, so it wasn't that important to me ultimately to get a precise diagnosis or a label on my problem, because either way, the way out was the same. All right, we have to remove the problem, the foods that are triggering inflammatory issues in the body. But here's the other thing. I don't see myself as having a disease. I use the word celiac disease to communicate with other people. It's pretty common now. It helps people know my needs. It helps explain why I'm the weird one, not eating all that stuff that's spread out on the banquet table. Okay, but I don't see my body as a problem because it's just trying to communicate with me. Okay, your body isn't a problem. Your body is trying to communicate with you. All right. So I'll just be really honest. I admit I've never actually had an official test to diagnose this when I say I'm celiac, but here's how I know. After removing all of the offending foods for years and feeling so good, I made a mistake and ingested some. I've actually done this a couple times. You know, it was a cookie here or a slice of pizza there, and it didn't take me long to realize that every single time I did that, I got sick. Like, the eject button works really well, if you know what I mean. So some people would say to me, oh, that's because over time you became more sensitive, or this problem gets worse over time, so your reaction is more violent, or maybe you're getting worse. But I don't see it that way. I know my body is more healthy. I know it has healed. I know how vibrant it is. And the eject button is just the way that it responds when it needs to protect itself. Okay, so I see it as my eject button is quick and efficient, and that really is actually a good thing, right? I don't see it as a problem with me. I actually see it as a problem with the culture. We normalize eating things that may or may not really be in the category of food. Okay, so wheat products actually, because of the way my body responds, I cannot see those as food anymore. They don't nourish me in any way. And I want you to think about this and do a little research on this. The Neolithic agricultural revolution was really not that long ago in the scope of human existence. And for sure, this whole like Pop-Tart frozen dinner experiment we're about 50 years into that, you can see what a failure it is, right? All right, so what should we do about this? Well, what I want to share is this. The women in my Vibrant Woman community, which is a Facebook group that I just started last week, you can search that. I will put the link below. It is an inclusive group with exclusive content. We're delighted to see anybody who wants to come and learn more about these health issues and this idea of vibrancy. Okay, so the women there, I'm going to have a challenge at the end of October, in about a month. We're going to do a carb test where I'm going to hold hands with everyone and walk them through what that is and what your body might experience as you go through these lower levels of insulin. What can you eat or not eat? You know, how are we feeling during this process? It can be sort of a mental challenge, a mindset to decide that you're going to eat differently and try these things. So we're doing that in the group coming up in about a month. Come on in if that's something that would interest you. I would love to have you on board. What we're going to do, though, really is to take some of these problematic foods out just to see if they're bothering you and to see if you're better off without them. And that's a pretty simple way to do it. Okay? If you have already been diagnosed with one or more of these issues, and it's really not uncommon, I hear this story all the time that somebody, the numbers were fine, so, oh, I don't have that problem, then why do I still feel so bad? Well, somebody did a different test, and that one says a maybe. And you know, the truth is, like, our body's reaction to these things, to allergies, can change over time. So sometimes that testing helps to give an answer to what we're already experiencing in our body. But I recommend that we don't ever replace the authority outside of us for the authority inside of us. So you know if you're thriving or not. And if you're not, if you have a suspicion, like I did, it just began to dawn on me. Every time I eat that way, this is how I feel. So I'm here to help women pay attention to that. Pay attention to your body. It is guiding you. It is telling you, I promise you can trust it. Okay? It wants the best for you. It wants to thrive. So we just have to learn how to listen. All right. So if you've already been diagnosed, or if you haven't been diagnosed and you suspect something like this is going on for you, then here's what I want to say. If you're already following a gluten-free diet or if you're about to try one out, I really want you to keep a few things in mind, right? I've already mentioned the companies that are going to profit off of this movement. You know, those packaged junk foods have just simply been re-engineered to be gluten-free now, but they're still highly processed. They still have a lot of sugar in them, artificial colors and flavors, refined carbohydrate flours in other forms. So they are really not good substitutes for that reason. I mean, yes, maybe that gluten-free Oreo cookie isn't going to land me on the bathroom floor for 6 hours while my system purges, but it will still affect my blood sugar stability, my brain function, my hormones, my weight. It really doesn't have any nutrients in it. Okay, so please opt for the best whole, real, unprocessed foods that you have access to. The top of my list, meat, eggs, vegetables, healthy fats. We can fit fruits in there so long as they don't bump us over our carbohydrate tolerance, all right? So I just want you to eat real foods. And I know that's so weird in this culture where it's so normal to walk into a building under fluorescent lights and buy things in boxes and bags. That's how we've been raised to think, many of us, to think about food. But I'm going to challenge you to redefine food for yourself, for your family, for the people that you love. Let's go back a little bit more toward nature and eat things that are not so processed. Eat things that have vital nutrients in them, okay? Eat things that help our bodies to thrive and feel vibrant. All right, and with that said, I get it. Sometimes we just need a treat. I mean, sometimes you want the damn cupcake, right? So if you find yourself in that situation, it does help to have your own recipes on hand, things that you know you can just whip up and that are not going to make you sick and not going to give you a migraine and not going to make your knees swell and your joints hurt for a week after, right? Once your body starts talking to you, it's really going to be harder and harder to ignore it. So what I have learned over the years is what works for me, and I do have a slew of recipes that I'm happy to share with people. I'm going to be doing that in a couple of ways. So if you're on my newsletter list, and I'll put that link below as well, Folks who get my free weekly e-newsletter are going to start getting recipes dripped out over time. And definitely that Vibrant Woman community group, I'm going to share recipes in there. And some of you are going to have to tweak them for your own needs. That's fine, okay? But I use things like coconut flour or almond flour, things that are going to be higher in fats, lower in carbs. I mean, I've got a favorite pumpkin muffin recipe that I'm making pretty much every day this week. And I tell you, even with the cream cheese frosting, it comes out to 5 grams of carb. Okay, so that keeps me well below my limit. It allows me to have a treat, and it keeps me from being symptomatic and sick for a week just to have a treat. Because, you know, people used to say this to me all the time. They would see how disciplined that I was. It's really not discipline when something makes you sick, right? They would say, oh, don't you ever cheat? My daughter Haley has a great response for this, you know, cheat on myself. But really, when you start to put the cause and effect together, do you really want to eat something that tastes good for about 5 or 10 seconds that you're chewing it and then feel sick for 3 or 4 days or a week later? I mean, you don't want to do that to yourself. So this whole thing, this whole Vibrant Woman movement that I'm getting off the ground here is about loving yourself, you know, taking really good, loving care of yourself, okay? So I think on that note, looking to see if I see any questions popping up. And I see some folks here. So hi, thank you for being here live. I love it that you're here. If there's no questions, I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. So let me just say this. I do have more stories about this. I definitely am happy to help if anyone has questions. About how to do it, if you should do it. I definitely have some time and energy to talk with people. You're welcome to pop in my DMs. You're welcome to go to my website and set up a free discovery call. I'm happy to talk to you about this. I actually have one one-on-one private coaching spot open for October. So if maybe that's yours, if you want some personal support and hand-holding through these concepts, which would include, you know, the carb and gluten trial here. Also, I love talking more about this. There's a story that happened to me actually not that long ago. I was in Italy a couple of years ago, and I had learned to say io sono celiaca, just to make sure that, you know, a celiac trip to Italy, right? I mean, what could go wrong? But I did accidentally ingest some gluten, and I really thought my family was never going to hear from me again as I lay on this, you know, basement bathroom floor in Rome, not sure what was going to happen to me. I had the instinct, actually, just before eating that food, not to eat it. And I want to share more of that story. I'm going to write a newsletter about it this week. So if you want to hear more about that, come on down, get on the list, because what I'm really trying to say is our bodies have our back. They're communicating to us. So this idea that certain foods make us sick doesn't make something wrong with us or our kids, if it's happening to your kids. It's just a communication issue. And once we learn to get on board with that, then I'm telling you, the future, the doors are going to fly right open, because once you can communicate with your body and you know what it needs to thrive, you have the potential to thrive like you've never even imagined before. So I like to ask people, you know, how good are you willing to let life get for you? All right. So I'm here to say that gluten-free life, even a grain-free life, as big of a change as it might feel, it's absolutely possible. All right. Well, that was a lot. Thank you for being here. I hope this helps, and I want to hear from you. Happy weekend.